In this lesson, we're taking a look at open power chords, which are essentially power chords that contain any sort of open string rather than all being fretted notes. This means they're stuck in a fixed position and are actually often rooted on the open string, so very different from the movable power chords that we looked at in the previous lesson, but do definitely check that one out if it's something that you're unfamiliar with. Once you've nailed both movable and open power chords, you'll be completely prepared to tackle all your favourite songs from the power chord playlist, which you can access in the description of the video, and that'll give you the chance to put your power chords into practice and really ingrain them into your playing. We've got 4 chords to look at, so let's dive in and take a look. So we're going to start with an E power chord, or an E5, rooted on the open low E string, so obviously we're going to have that open low E. That's going to be the root note, and then we're going to use the first finger to play the second fret on both the A string and the D string, so we're going to have a mini bar in this chord. So just to clarify, we've got the open low E, and you have to make sure that the first finger isn't positioned too high up so it touches that low E and mutes it, because then we'll have lost our root note, which is really important. So we've definitely got the open low E, then first finger bar in the second fret A and the second fret D. And then the really tricky part of this chord is making sure that the angle of the finger is correct so that it mutes the G, B and high E string. So you want to hear the bottom 3 strings ringing out and then the top 3 muted. So if I go through all 6 strings, we've got the bottom 3 ringing out together and then the top 3 nice and muted. And then if I strum all the strings, you're just hearing that nice tight power chord sound. So it's a fairly simple shape, but just to give you a deeper understanding of where this chord comes from, if I start with a movable power chord, for example, if I play an F power chord here rooted on the first fret, and I move every note down by 1 semitone, I'd actually have to take the first finger off because the first fret becomes the open low E as the new root note. And then if you look at my back 2 fingers, you can see I'm playing the second frets on the A string and D string, which is exactly what we were doing with this first finger. So theoretically, this E power chord is the same shape as this F power chord, but we're just using different fingers for logistical reasons and for efficiency, and that means that we can play these bluesy style open power chord riffs, which just wouldn't be possible if we were using the back fingers all the time. Next, we're going to look at an A power chord using an open shape. So this is going to have our root note as the open A string, and it's actually exactly the same as the E power chord, but everything is placed 1 string higher. So we're going to start with the open A, and then the first finger is going to bar the second fret on the D and G strings. And then once again, we have to use the underside of our first finger to mute, in this case, the top 2 strings, so the B string and the high E string. So we've got the 3 notes in the chord, the A, D and G strings, and then the 2 muted strings on top. And then the other challenge for this one is making sure that the low E is also muted, because we don't want that on the bottom of the chord. We want our open A root note on the bottom. So 2 ways to do this. First of all, you can wrap the thumb around the top of the neck, just sitting on that string, making sure it's nice and muted. Or the other option is to bring the second finger over and just touch the low E string with that second finger. Make sure you don't press it down, otherwise you'll play a G note. You want to just rest on the string, and you also want to make sure that it isn't touching the open A string either. That can be quite an easy mistake to make. A good way to avoid this is to make it feel like your second finger is sitting more on the top of the neck rather than on the side of the string, and then naturally the underside of like the fleshy part of your finger will probably just naturally mute that low E string without infringing the A string as well. So we've got the open A, we've got the second fret D and G, the low E string is muted, the top 2 strings are muted. So if I give the whole chord a strum, once again, just that tight, neat power chord sound. Now, just while I'm on the topic of this chord, I want to clear something up that can be a little bit confusing, which is that if you also bar the B string and turn it into a 4-note chord like this, that actually changes the chord from an A power chord into an A major. Now in some songs you can get away with the A major bar chord rather than just the power chord, and sometimes it actually makes the song sound better. However, if you're playing a song where the tonality of the A is minor rather than major, then it's definitely going to sound pretty bad. And that sounds really theory-ish, but honestly your ears will tell you if you play the wrong note in the song. So just keep an ear out, and if you do play that extra note by accident and it's not working, just make sure you've got the muting in place. Obviously it's a tiny little change of angle in the finger that completely changes the name of the chord, so you've got to be careful of these things. But by all means, if you're playing a song and it's got an A major tonality to it and you think that note sounds good, then feel free to throw it in. Next, we're going to take a look at a D power chord using an open shape, and sadly we can't just move the shape up again because of the tuning of the guitar. So for this one we're going to have the open D string, we're going to have first finger playing the 2nd fret on the G string, and third finger playing the 3rd fret on the B string. And these are the only 3 strings that we want to hear ringing out, so we're going to use either the thumb to wrap around and mute the bottom 2 strings, just like in a normal D chord, or this time we can use the 2nd finger to just sit in between those 2 strings and mute them both, but make sure that it's not infringing on the open D string because you want to hear that root note. And also the high E string has to be muted as well. The way I've got it at the moment, my 3rd finger is just lightly resting on that top string and keeping it muted as well as playing the B string, but I think for some people maybe doing the muting with the 1st finger feels more natural, so just go with whatever feels best to you. But it's still just a 3-note chord, just the D string, G string and B string, and if I give it a strum, once again just that tidy power chord sound without any extra stuff ringing out. And final chord of the day is going to be a G power chord. Now this is a little bit of a cheeky one because I've already taught this chord in my beginner's course. The reason being that even though it's a power chord, it often gets used in place of a major chord because it still has quite a bright majory sound. But this is the version of G that has the 2nd finger playing 3rd fret on the bottom string, but then the underside of that finger is muting the open A string. However, following that we're keeping the open D and open G, and then we've got 3rd and little finger both playing 3rd frets on the B string and high E string. So the full sound of the chord is a 5-note chord, you're just not hearing the open A string. If I give it a strum, it sounds kind of majory and bright, which is why you can get away with it, but it is technically a power chord. There's no 3rd in the chord, so it sounds pretty good with distortion on. Sometimes it gets referred to as the AC/DC G because it's the obvious choice for AC/DC songs, but yeah, technically a power chord. So there you have the E, A, D and G open power chords. So now we've covered both movable and open power chords, you're fully set to start learning your favourite songs from the power chord playlist, which you can find in the video description. Obviously the more songs you learn the better, because the power chords will become more of a natural part of your playing, and you'll increase your repertoire and you can enjoy playing along with more of your favourite songs. Be sure to subscribe if you'd like to follow along with the lessons, and I'd really appreciate you giving the video a like if you found it helpful, and I'll see you in the song lessons.